Good afternoon. I have the challenge of preaching to full people. And then Brother Thompson with that wonderful introduction. Now I have to preach well. Now I have to learn preacher protocol. Now does that mean to preach good I got to close my jacket or open my jacket? What's the preacher protocol on that? I'm going to see what happens. I'm going to go open jacket this time. But next time I had to really preach, I'm going to try to close jacket. Y'all tell me which one was better. I want to thank God, first of all, for this day, for the opportunity to be here to worship him in spirit and in truth. Then also I want to thank the leadership here for allowing me this opportunity to bring forth this afternoon's message. This afternoon's message is titled simply Passing the Baton, and that is the theme for our Seasoned Saints Day today, Passing the Baton. And our text comes from Titus, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 6. And I just want to, if you turn that with me, I want to reread that. Titus, the 2nd chapter, verses 1 through 6. If you have it, I'll read. But thou speak the things which become sound doctrine, that the aged men be sober, grave, temperate, sound in faith, in charity, in patience. The aged women likewise, that they be in behavior as becometh holiness, not false accusers, not given to much wine, teachers of good things, that they may teach the young women to be sober, to love their husbands, to love their children, to be discreet, chaste, keepers at home, good, obedient to their own husbands, that the word of God be not blasphemed. Young men likewise exhort to be sober-minded. When Paul writes this to Titus, he's writing to a young man, a young minister, and he writes to him telling him the things that he ought to teach the older men and teach the older women and also teach the younger women and younger men. And when I thought about the theme, passing the baton, I thought about what does passing the baton mean? What comes to mind when you think of that? And what came to my mind, the first thing I thought about was a relay race. First thing that came to my mind was a relay race, and because they use a baton, that's simply it. I didn't have anything very clever that made me think of a relay race. It's simply because they use a baton, and we're talking about passing the baton. And in a relay race, you need more than one person to finish the race. You see, if you run, they have a race they call the 4x400, which is 4 people running 1 400 apiece. Now think if they never passed the baton. It's a tied runner. People train to run 4 laps. You don't just run 4 laps. You train for that. So there's a reason that we pass the baton. And what else about the relay race came to mind was the fact that each leg of the race, each person runs their leg, and every time they run, they get closer to the finish. Without every runner in the relay race running their portion of the race, they cannot finish the race. What else came to my mind was that when you have the baton in this relay race, when they hand you the baton, it is now your responsibility. It has now been turned over to you. The race is now yours. The race is no longer the one that gave it to you, and it's no longer the one that's coming after you. The race is now yours. And what else came to my mind was the fact that when you run your portion of the race, what you're doing is now you're supposed to take what the runner before you has done and take it to the next location. Whatever that may be, you have to take the race to the next location. If you think about the 4x100 meter relay, where they run 1 lap around the track with 4 people. If the second man doesn't run, the third man can't run. So what are you saying, Brother Gaston? I'm saying when you have the baton and it's your responsibility to run, you got to run. And when you run and when you get to the next leg, you got to give up the baton. The thoughts I want you to take away from today's lesson: passing the baton does not mean your race is over. And then my second point is be ready to run. be ready to run. And when I think about going back to taking what has been done and going further, I think about an experience I had. And when I was out, I was working in the city of Birmingham, Alabama. And out there, if you've ever been out there, they have a site. If you've ever heard of the 16th Street Baptist Church bombing. And you can go downstairs in the basement of that church. And they have all the materials that were up on the stage. And that they have some of the pews that were in the building when the bomb went off. And you get to see those items. You see, you get to see those items right in front of you that went through such a traumatic experience. And then you can walk through and see the pictures of the girls that were having Bible class when this bomb went off and killed them, and their Bible school teacher, and they were sitting there just trying to learn a little bit more. And then across the street, they have the Black History Museum. And when you go into the Black History Museum, you sit down for a movie. And in this movie, they talk about the slave trade. And then they talk about how they talk about slavery. Then they go into the freeing of slaves, but the persecution of those same people who were just slaves. And then they talk about the segregation, and they talk about the all-black school and the all-white school, and the way the classrooms looked, and the chalkboard versus half a chalkboard in one class. And then you walk through and you see a scene that they've built, that they've modeled, and it's a little girl. It's to be a little black girl standing outside of a diner, and there's people inside the diner eating, and she can't go in and eat. She has to go around the back and get her food. And I walked through, and they had a diagram of how many blue-collar workers, how many black blue-collar workers were working in the 1950s. And it was a staggering percentage. It was 70 or 80% to 20% that had what we would call white-collar jobs, or jobs with air conditioning. Okay? And so then they looked, and they went about 1990, and you see that the trend had changed, where you have more black men, more black women in the white collar versus the blue collar. Now, I'm not saying anything's wrong with blue collar jobs, but what I'm saying is that told me that I need to go back to school and finish my education because someone had done something so that I could get that education. You see, when we talk about our seasoned saints, young people, listen to me. You're talking to people who didn't read about Martin Luther King, but saw Martin Luther King. Some of our seasoned saints walked with Martin Luther King. They remember, see, now when we go to the water fountain, we see two water fountains, but one's for the tall people and one's for the short people. But when they walked to the water fountain, one was for the black people and one was for the white people. Everybody couldn't drink this water. Everybody couldn't go for it. So we need to be appreciative to what they have done, what they have endured, so that we could all enjoy the things that we enjoy now. You see, I think about our President Barack Obama. Now, I don't care if you like him or dislike him, but that is a difference in what we had seen for years and years. Okay, I'm not here to promote him or degrade him. I'm just telling you that I believe and I pray that 2 or 3 generations from now, that to see a female, a white female, a Hispanic female, a black female as president won't even look strange to our great-grandchildren. You see, to me, when I go to school, I went to school, and every nationality went to school with me. But see, that was my norm. That's what I was used to. And why was I used to that? Because of our seasoned saints. They endured the segregation so that I could integrate. You see, integration wasn't that long ago. My mother was one of the first women to integrate her elementary school, her middle school, and she was made fun of by her classmates over at the black elementary and middle school. Okay? So it's not that long ago that these things were so. You see, young people, you got to, when the fact that you can read, and that it's not a bad thing for you to learn how to read, you got to appreciate that. Now, I don't love to sit down all the time and read a book, but I appreciate the fact, and I love the fact that I can read a book when I want to read a book because somebody got beat upside the head for learning how to read so that I can learn how to read freely. Somebody went through something. So it's our job to take it further. You look at Wheless Lane. We eat where we used to worship. Somebody took that. They went from one building to that building, and I believe, and I